So,
I think it's more your line, your.
should we go a little bit like this? What do you
Well,
think?
hello. Now we are live broadcasting and filming. So I would like to start with wishing you welcome and saying thank you very much for participating in this Raoul Wallenberg Legacy of Leadership project together with the Mix Institute, the Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies. We are very pleased to have you on board on this project, Ambassador Brzezinski. So how are you doing today?
Isadora, I'm doing great, and I love connecting with you over there in Montreal at McGill. I have a close family, personal connection with Montreal and McGill because indeed my father grew up in Morin Heights and went to McGill as his undergrad. I have gone to McGill myself years ago to talk about a book I had written about the struggle for constitutionalism in Poland after I did a Fulbright in that country. And now, as U.S. Ambassador to Sweden in my third year, I am so pleased to talk with you and Migs on Raoul Wallenberg and his legacy. It's such an important topic. Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, we're very glad that you could fit this into your schedule as well. We know that you recently wrote an article about the gold congressional medal that was handed to Raoul Wallenberg, which brought us attention to you as well. So my first question to you today would be, if there's one thing young North Americans can take away from Raoul Wallenberg, what is it?
If there's one thing that young North Americans, or indeed young people around the world, can take from the Raoul Wallenberg legacy, it is this. It is the importance of not being indifferent. That's a phrase that I think captures the essence of what Raoul Wallenberg's story is. And what is Raoul Wallenberg's story? It is the story of a young man in his late 20s and in his early 30s traveling to Nazi-occupied Hungary and acting courageously and creatively to do things that few others were doing in Nazi-occupied Europe, and that is, I guess, violating their official instructions and protocols to save others. It is the story of someone who risked his life and ultimately gave his life for basic values. That's the story I take from it. That's the story I want my 5-year-old daughter, when she's an adult, to live. And that is, fight for causes larger than yourself, even sometimes take risks for the greater good. That is the essence of the Raoul Wallenberg story. And it's something that in the course of 3 years here in Sweden, I've really tried to build our engagement with the Swedes around this legacy of the importance of not being indifferent. Whether it's been the highly visible, VVIP visits of my Secretary of State's Hillary Clinton and John Kerry to Sweden, or the visit of my President Barack Obama to Sweden when they celebrated the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg, or if it's been simply me and my wife going to the Raoul Wallenberg preschool just outside of Stockholm to share photos with the young kids from all over the world here in Sweden, and to talk about that narrative and what it could mean for them. That's what we have tried to do here at the U.S. Embassy, and it's been an incredibly constructive dialogue, because so many of the other things that we work on here, whether it's on international development assistance and helping the 2/3 of humanity that lives in abject poverty, or on the future of the Arctic, or on all kinds of security questions, the importance of not being indifferent has great relevance as an overarching theme.
You're indeed doing a very important job. It's very admirable. So you answered a lot of my second question here to you. But if you would be more, if I would ask you more into detail, the lessons that we can extract from Raoul Wallenberg's life, how can those be applied to our lives today in the problems facing humanity?
Right. Let me give you just some examples of who I think are the Raoul Wallenbergs of today, because I think that that's a great question that you've asked, Isadora, because how can one really walk the walk? Sure, one can kind of offer these broad statements, the importance of not being indifferent, but how does one actually do that? Take the young man Shirush Darakti. That's a name of a young man who lives in Malmo, Sweden, an immigrant-rich city in southern Sweden. And Shirush Darakti is a young man who arranged an organization called Young Muslims Against Anti-Semitism, and now I think the organization has a new name of Young People Against Discrimination. I can't remember the exact name of his organization right here, but here is a young person in his 20s who is talented, educated, and can do a lot. And this is an example of him doing something much larger than himself. So I take him as a great example. Other examples include whether it's in activists fighting to protect against climate change and fighting for the environment, or the Young Ukrainian Students Association, with whom I've met and with whom I've taken part in events to stand with them because they themselves had stood in person in Maidan Square in Kiev to fight for what is right and to fight against what we have seen in eastern Ukraine, and that's Russia's aggression. There are many, many causes to which all of us can and really should put ourselves toward to leave a better world for our children and our grandchildren.
These are indeed inspiring examples of how one person can make a difference, very much so. How would you summarize Raoul Wallenberg's legacy if you would be given just one line to do so?
Well, I think that I've done that when I said the importance of not being indifferent, but I also think that there's many aspects to his story that are worthy of one line. I have to say, in answering your question, I literally mailed a copy of one of the new biographies of Raoul Wallenberg, because several biographies, new histories of Raoul Wallenberg, have been written and were released last year. I literally mailed an English language version of one of those new biographies to one of the top Hollywood producers whose name you'd recognize instantly, suggesting that a blockbuster movie be made about Raoul Wallenberg. Because to me it's such a compelling story of a young person born in very privileged circumstances, educated in America, and who chose to risk his life and then give his life for a higher mission and a higher calling. To me, it's an incredible story. But let me go beyond the importance of not being indifferent and offer you a second line that I think answers your question.
Yes.
And that is the way countries can cooperate internationally to improve people's lives and save lives. And I'm thinking of the American-Swedish relationship today, but I'm saying that because Raoul Wallenberg did his activities in Budapest, Hungary, with the support of the American government and was partially funded by the American government. And this was at some of the most murderous moments of the Holocaust. And it shows that governments can and must come together to help those who can't help themselves. So I think that's another important piece of this very important story, which I think deserves to be accentuated because it's incumbent on all of us, you, me, the Americans, the Swedes, others, to work together to help those elsewhere who can't help themselves. I'm very proud to say this, Isadora, and that is Sweden is among America's #1 partners in the world today in terms of overseas development assistance and in terms of international humanitarian aid. The Swedes give more percentage-wise in terms of their GDP than many others around the world, and also what they do makes a difference. Sometimes giving just money can reinforce the worst tendencies where you're trying to impact reform. The Swedes do it, and the Americans do it together, I feel, in a very intelligent fashion.
I'm very happy to hear about this great cooperation between the two countries. Indeed, and my next question, you in part answered a lot through the idea of collaboration between nations, because I wanted to focus a little bit on what we can do today, not only to increase awareness of Raoul Wallenberg, where you mentioned the book sent to this Hollywood producer, which,
yes,
by the way, I would be very interested in seeing if that would become a fantastic movie. I'm sure it would.
I
But
never
also,
heard back, by the way. I sent the book and I never heard back.
okay.
I was disappointed.
Well,
so if any of you or your listeners know good Hollywood producers to send some of these great biographies about Raoul Wallenberg, they should do it, because I think it's an awesome story that deserves blockbuster movie amplification.
Oh, I hope someone will pick up on this out there.
Yes.
Indeed. So yes, my question that will come on to that is the importance of his legacy today in contemporary mass atrocity prevention. When these nations come together and collaborate, what is the importance of Raoul Wallenberg's legacy in that context?
Well, I think that's a great question, because I think nations can come together and speak wonderful words and not make a difference. The great thing about Raoul Wallenberg is that as one person and working with just a few people, and we were so honored to be able to introduce to President Barack Obama when he visited Sweden on his historic first ever U.S. presidential visit to Stockholm, to survivors who were saved by Raoul Wallenberg and people who helped Raoul Wallenberg as assistants and so forth when he was doing his heroic duties and work in Budapest. But to your point, I think it's very important to distinguish very nice and wonderful words versus action. And the essence of the Raoul Wallenberg story is not hope and concern, but action. He actually did something to save, literally in the end, hundreds of thousands of lives who are alive today. And I think that's a really important distinction as we look at the challenges around the world, because it is incumbent on all of us to be truly practical and truly constructive about the challenges we face, because otherwise we're united for what end? We're united in word but not in deed. That's not the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg. We have to be united in deed as well.
Fantastic. Thank you. So, if we now move on to Raoul Wallenberg's fate, which yet remains clouded in mystery and we do not know, do you have any theories personally about what happened to him?
I do not, and I just know what the record states that we know right now, which is that he was captured by Soviet authorities and likely died in lonely isolation, forgotten by many, including, unfortunately, his own government. I think that what I believe, and I'm hopeful that one day we will learn more about his fate.
Yes, we are many to hope so as well. Let's see if we will. I still personally also hope that something will become clearer to us soon. My next question is more personal about Raoul Wallenberg as well. He put his own life in danger to save many, many people. What do you think motivated him to do so?
I think a great sensitivity to human suffering. And I think that that's a very important quality, because I think that in today's world we can bear witness to human suffering and all agree that it's a hard problem and then do very little about it. That's why I'm so proud of my president mobilizing really all the resources and the best resources we have in the face of the challenge of Ebola. I think it's heartening and reassuring that he has made the decision to really address directly this challenge, relying on a large number of different assets of the U.S. government. That's translating concern into action against a threat. And I think that's an important legacy that we take also from the Wallenberg story.
Thank you. So now we're going to direct the attention to the younger people around the world. How can we use Raoul Wallenberg's story to engage them in issues of humanitarianism or compassion?
Well, I think when it comes to young people, and not just young people, people around the world, people learn through narratives and personal stories. We can all study statistics, and we can all study kind of, history books and so forth, but there's nothing like a personal story that gives us a sense of what can be done and has been done and can be replicated. So to me, what I have found in Sweden here, when I came here, it was in late 2011, and I had just gone through the confirmation in the U.S. Senate when I took a look at, because every U.S. ambassador has to be confirmed by the U.S. Senate, I took a look at the calendar for 2012, and I saw a notation for the beginning of the one-year celebration of the 100th anniversary of the birth of Raoul Wallenberg. And I said, Raoul Wallenberg, this is something I am going to embrace. The Raoul Wallenberg story is about human dignity. My president, Barack Obama, for whom I am the personal representative of in Sweden, is all about human dignity. We are going to, as U.S. Embassy Stockholm, fully embrace this narrative because it is such a useful way to engage people on the challenges of our time. And so in the course of the next 3 years, we did a number of things to really amplify the story of Raoul Wallenberg and build out our engagement with the Swedes. What do I mean? Well, on the very day of the beginning of that one-year celebration of the birth of Raoul Wallenberg, my Secretary of State at the time, Hillary Clinton, and Foreign Minister Carl Bildt, Foreign Minister of Sweden at the time, did a joint op-ed in the International Herald Tribune about the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg. In April of 2012, President Barack Obama did a YouTube to the Swedish people about his hero, the young man Raoul Wallenberg, and his legacy. The largest United States Senate delegation to visit Sweden in more than a decade, led by Swedish American from the state of Georgia, Johnny Isaacson, brought over in August of 2012, signed congressional legislation bestowing the Congressional Gold Medal on Raoul Wallenberg. And they brought that very large U.S. Senate delegation, brought it to the Swedish Parliament, and in a very wonderful event, conveyed that legislation to the still living half-sister of Raoul Wallenberg, Nina Lagergren. I planted a tree in front of the U.S. ambassadorial residence in Stockholm in a high-visibility event with my esteemed Deputy Secretary of State, Bill Burns, the Speaker of the Swedish Parliament, the Deputy Secretary General of the United Nations, Jan Eliasson, the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Frank Belfrage, in honor of Raoul Wallenberg, and it's a horse chestnut tree. And that horse chestnut tree is famous from the diary of Anne Frank, because it was Anne Frank who looked out on her square in Amsterdam from her hiding place in the building at a horse chestnut tree, and that tree gave her inspiration for life. And to life is an important part of the human struggle. And then, of course, the capstone of all capstones was the visit by my president, Barack Obama, in September of 2013, on the eve of Rosh Hashanah, when he went to the great synagogue of Sweden and with the Prime Minister of Sweden, met the still living half-sister of Raoul Wallenberg, Nina Lagergren, survivors from the Holocaust, people who helped Raoul Wallenberg during the Holocaust, to celebrate the legacy of Raoul Wallenberg. And then this past July 2014, at a major event in the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol, the U.S. Congress in Washington, the Congressional Gold Medal was presented posthumously to Raoul Wallenberg and directly to his still living half-sister, Nina Lagergren, in a wonderful, massive American celebration of this legacy and of this thesis, the importance of not being indifferent. It is a beautiful event which you should take a look at online, and there's few bigger events in terms of the U.S. government than the bestowal of the Congressional Gold Medal. And so these are different things that have happened with respect to the Raoul Wallenberg legacy, and it has really been the essence of the American-Swedish relationship for now almost 3 years, at least during my stay here in Stockholm, and I'm very proud of that.
I'm very glad to hear this. Yes, I did personally watch the U.S. Gold Congressional Medal ceremony, and I do hope that our viewers and listeners will take the opportunity to have a look at it as well. It was very powerful and beautiful, and it's wonderful to see how the U.S. and as well as Canada also honor Raoul Wallenberg as an honorary citizen in these both two countries.
Definitely.
And it's beautiful also to hear about this nice cooperation between Sweden and the United States in honoring Raoul Wallenberg. And I really hope that this collaboration will continue in the future, and that we will keep honoring Raoul Wallenberg and his legacy for the importance of contemporary mass atrocity prevention today. Many things are ongoing in different conflict zones and countries today, and it's important that we do not forget the importance of what one person can do. I do not have, sorry?
Very true. I think that that's very well said.
Thank you, thank you. I do not have any further questions to you today, Mr. Brzezinski, but would you like to add something to this before we round it off?
No, I really feel that we've covered a lot of the of what I think has been a solid collaboration between the Americans and the Swedes to maximize the potential of a beautiful story and a beautiful narrative, and to make it contemporary and meaningful in today's challenges, and to bring our countries together. I said at the very beginning that the American-Swedish relationship is increasingly strategic. A strategic relationship does not happen without an overlay of principles that inform policy. And if the essence of that principle is the story of Raoul Wallenberg, a lot of good can come of it. A lot of good has come of it in our relationship, but I actually think that the best is yet to come, and we should continue a robust engagement on Raoul Wallenberg. I think it's a great legacy to build on.
That is a fantastic note to finish on. Very inspirational. Thank you very much. It has been a delight to be talking to you today. And I also hope that you can log into the website and have a look at pictures of our previous events. The very successful event in New York featuring Louis Moreno Campo, Jan Eliasson, and Irvin Cutler from Canada as well.
Terrific.
And our Ottawa event that just took place last week, it was also filmed, so it will soon be available to actually watch the entire conference there. And our photos from that event are also available on the website. And we will soon have the one in Toronto coming up on October 14th, and finally the one in Montreal on October 29th. If you would have anyone that would be interested in attending, or if anyone watching this would hear about this, please come, please attend. We want to see as many faces as possible, and I know these events are the first two ones. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Isadora. Your questions were excellent. I congratulate you on your record, and I hope that my embassy, U.S. Embassy Sweden, can continue to collaborate with you and MIGS.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And take care, and I hope you will keep enjoying your stay and visit in Sweden and in the Nordic countries as well.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Thank you.